These are wise words from Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. This is the news for yous.
Hello and welcome to the News for Yous, bringing you the news the non-news news networks refuse to use. We are back by popular demand from one of our viewers. Thank you for your support. I'm your host, Wayne Darnell. The headlines. Australia sends out an SOS.
This is an official SOS.
Peaceful freedom protests erupt around the globe. But if you're in a cryo chamber, live in a cave, or receive your news from the BBC, you may be completely unaware. It's third time lucky for authoritarianism on mainland Europe, as the usual suspects have another crack at the title. In New Zealand, is Jacinda losing it?
If you've got a vaccine pass, you can do everything. Basically, that's it.
In the USA, presidential stool mystery in front of the Pope. Fact checked. U-bends, wood screws, MDF, reality. All available at your local DIY store.
Stick your vaccine mandates, you can stick your vaccine mandates up your arse.
And in the UK, the government of occupation has dropped its alliance with useful idiots insulate Britain as they become unstuck and are sentenced to jail.
It's suggested it will be a custodial sentence. So yes, I am nervous, anxious.
I know, well, I've heard that it's not going to be easy.
Over to Matthew, a man on the ground, for more details.
Things have reached the heads glued to road stage of the climate crisis.
For me, they had this morning, yes, because I felt that was, well, if you look at the government's response to the climate emergency in terms of the number of heat pumps that they're looking to put in 90,000 out of 25 million. That's less than 1/3 of 1%. That's not really responding to an emergency.
I'm concerned about your head.
Yes, so am I.
You're not going to snip yourself, are you?
Hopefully not. You'll find out if there's blood coming out.
Sorry, what's your name?
Matthew.
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. But first, COP26. A flotilla of around 400 private jets descended on Glasgow earlier this month, carrying some of the world's leading climate hypocrites. The snooze fest, which cost taxpayers millions, appears to have achieved absolutely nothing, as China, India and Russia refuse to play ball when asked to cut their global emissions. Here are some of the highlights.
racist system that we are in, this is what caused the climate crisis, and so we have to dismantle that in order to achieve climate justice.
You can shove your climate crisis up your arse. You can shove your climate crisis up your arse. You can shove your climate crisis. You can shove your climate crisis. You can shove your climate crisis up your arse.
Political groupie and world leader nobody Nicola Sturgeon, First Minister of the Banana Republic of Scotland, was also spotted at the event, having slipped past security to gain access and selfie opportunities with many of the world's top hypocrites, celebrities, elites and dictators in her relentless quest to get noticed, leaving some commentators to ask, when does a fan become a stalker? Numerous calls for international help have been emerging from Australia as the authoritarian dictatorships in many of the states tighten their grip on the citizens, aided and abetted by the New World Order police force.
Urgent action to escalate our response in these communities, immediately implementing a hard lockdown. That means residents of Binjari and Rockall no longer have the 5 reasons to leave their home. They can only leave for medical treatment in an emergency or if required by law. It's highly likely that more residents will be transferred to Howard Springs today, either as positive cases or close contacts. We've already identified 38 close contacts in Binjari, and that number will go up. Those 38 are being transferred now. I contacted the Prime Minister last night. We are grateful for the support of about 20 ADF personnel as well as army trucks to assist with the transfer of positive cases and close contacts.
Of course, these cries for international help have been completely ignored by other world dictators, the mainstream media and most human rights groups.
I'm a descendant of the Luritja Wambaya people in Central Desert. I also descend from the Scottish and Irish tribes of Europe. We are a part of the original Sovereign Tribal Federation. We are part of the community. We are part of the people, and we're standing here united to make an international call for assistance. We need international attention focused on what's happening here in our communities. We have the Northern Territory Government. The New World Order agenda, everything has been trialled and practiced on the sovereign tribal people of this continent. So wake up Australia, wake up world, come to our aid, stand up, expose the... or you're going to lose the oldest living culture on the planet. And if we all sit by idly and we don't do anything about this, we're all complicit. Please pay attention to what's happening and expose this tyranny and this genocide before we die and lose it all. Ma.
And if anybody thinks that we are going to be distracted or intimidated by tinfoil hat wearing tossers sitting in their parents' basements in Florida, then you do not know us Territorians. Thank you.
This tinfoil hat wearing woman from the Northern Territories begs to differ. Is a circus in town? These people seem to think so.
End the mandate! Give us our jobs back, you fucking clown!
Huge peaceful protests continue to be held across the globe, yet the BBC and most of the mainstream media continue to leave them unreported. Why? Fact-checking? Censorship? Inconvenient truth? Who knows? Fortunately, at the News for Yous, it's our civic duty to bring you the highlights of last weekend's peaceful freedom protests from around the world. And if this doesn't wake you up, nothing will. On to mainland Europe now, proving that a leopard never changes its spots. The authoritarian leaders of Austria, Germany, as well as the Netherlands and Slovakia, have been zipping up their boots and goose-stepping back to their totalitarian roots as they impose a Here's Jeff.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Hello there.
What's new, Jeff?
Be in no doubt. Everything just changed. Because what Austria just announced will be replicated across the world.
For 5 days this week, Austria locked down its unvaccinated people. Almost 2 million were only allowed out to work and to buy food and such. Many of those unvaccinated were therefore working in shops and cafes and restaurants and so on, as lowly servants, if you will. But as soon as their shifts ended, they could not be in those same places, certainly not as customers.
Let the games of vilification, segregation and discrimination begin. And the Austrians have just lost another traditional Christmas. And no doubt the censors will be out to stop any debate on this matter. You will not speak of it, you will not argue, you will merely comply.
It seemed clear to me that the move was not about health, but about compliance and obedience, or rather yet another bid to tackle and subdue the stubborn refusal to comply and to obey. Do as you're told.
What the Austrian government just announced is the single most terrifying thing to happen in mainland Europe since the middle of the last century.
If the 20th century has a lesson for us, a lesson that ought to be as permanent, as indelible as any scar or tattoo, it is that encouraging citizens to regard a minority of their fellows as unclean, as vectors of disease, generally ends badly for everyone.
We are all now entering the darkest of times in the history of mankind. Everything else pales into insignificance compared to the events now unfolding before our very eyes. And the UK government and the loyal opposition have not raised an eyebrow over this attack on civil liberties within the borders of a Western democracy. And that is what should worry us all, not a peep from our democratically elected representatives.
How on earth have we got here, and so quickly? Austria, a supposedly liberal modern democracy, has decided to assume full rights over the flesh and blood of its citizens. A government in 21st century Europe has decided it has the final say over what chemicals go into the bodies of those citizens. There's no way of denying that that is the crossing of a Rubicon. Once people have to surrender control of their bodies to the state, those people are in a different world, a world in which they are not autonomous beings but puppets on strings. It's also likely a world from which there is no turning back.
And the longer other Western leaders stay silent over this, the more likely it will be that it will happen in the UK. And the authoritarian amongst us will be foaming at the mouth with pleasure. Why do I get the feeling that Boris and his psychological nudge team are watching developments in Austria very closely, keeping quiet, keeping their powder dry, ready to strike at the right moment?
The tone is changing across Europe now, reverting in many ways to the rhythms of an old tune. Can you hear the drums yet? The tumbrils? We're already being encouraged to turn a blind eye to the locking down of Austria's unvaccinated. Will we turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to compulsory medical procedures for her citizens? Will we remain silent while such a dark tide slides ever closer to our own shores, one country at a time? He who remains silent is deemed to have granted his consent, or so the old tenet goes. Will we remain silent, or will we speak up loud and clear and truthfully? Martin Luther King said we have a moral obligation to disobey unjust laws. Will we speak up to withhold our consent? Will we disobey unjust laws? And if we will not, then who are we?
Let's go to New Zealand, where Kiwi dictator Jacinda Ardern appears to be overjoyed.
One News understands that this is in relation to Operation Metals, a homicide investigation launched after a man named Robert Hart sustained serious gunshot injuries outside a Newland motel last week, and he died despite first aid attempts. Now, since his death, health authorities say he tested positive for COVID-19, and One News understands that several people are also isolating. So then you have to ask how someone who sustained these types of injuries and then died ends up as part of our COVID-19 death tally.
In the USA, reanimated cadaver and 46th President of the United States of America, sleepy, creepy Joe Biden, has, quite rightly, managed to keep his dignity intact, as it has been proved beyond all reasonable doubt that the leader of the most powerful country in the world did not soil his underwear during an audience with Pope Francis in the Vatican last month. This is yet another example of how the fact checkers can save us all from misinformation, and the president's reputation can remain unsoiled. He did, however, break wind whilst talking to Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, a few days later, allegedly. The Duchess told friends that the president gave an enormous blast whilst in mid-conversation. There is no evidence for this claim, however, but this photograph could be actual proof that if the wind changes direction, your face could stay like that. The president also managed to fall asleep in a meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister and at COP26, like most of the other attendees. Staying in the USA, rumours are rife in Washington, DC, that the Vice President, cackling Kamala Harris, whose popularity rating is in full nosedive, could be in for the chop, partly because of her handling of the migration problem, but mostly because no one actually likes her. If the rumours turn out to be true, who will take her place? Technically, Nancy Pelosi is next in line, although unlikely. We've made this short film to demonstrate what this unholy alliance of geriatrics would look like.
Judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental fitness.
We got it. We got it.
For people that bad at healthcare.
Vertebral is important. You have to take it out.
From the time I got to the Senate 180 years ago.
I think mostly we're getting privilege scrub, because privilege scrub is deadly to a bill.
For example, there's a situation where there's an estimation of somewhere between $700 billion and $1.3 trillion.
Think positively, okay? It goes this way.
True international effort to pressure.
So we are getting some bird and privilege.
Wait, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It's going to be a eventful day. Perhaps I'll see you along the way. Hi. Perhaps I'll see you along the way.
It's taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it. I don't know, it's like watching a yo-yo. I shouldn't have said it that way. It's like watching.
It feels that way. I want to ask.
They're the two exercises we're getting engaged. Bathing exercises we're engaged in, and we're getting good response.
Just clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Is this the state of the United States?
We've gone from 15 days to slow the spread to 3 jabs to keep your job somehow. Are you kidding me?
And in technical news, human waxwork and founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, launched his way marionette style through a presentation as he launched his virtual reality platform, Meta, earlier this month. But what's it all about? And is it better than reality? The News for Yous finds out.
Zuckerberg's virtual world of play pretend is a way of escaping the destruction he's wrought on the real one. Rather than address the ruination, Zuckerberg wants us all to turn our attention to the land of make-believe where he's friends with rappers and you can watch Instagram stories on a pirate ship, which does sound quite good fun.
It is time for us to adopt
a new company brand to encompass everything that we do.
Mark, are you sure you want to do this video yourself? Yes, I'm sure I want to do the video myself. Are you not worried that people will think you're like a little veal calf up on its hind legs, just released from the crate by protesters, doing a presentation? No, I'm not worried about that. Are you not worried that people think you've cut your fringe a bit too high up your head, like sort of a little Caesar, Julius Caesar from old days from a coin? Look, stop asking me. This is my company. I come up with all these ideas. If they was going to invent Facebook, they would have invented Facebook. I mean, Meta.
I am proud to announce that starting today, our company is now Meta.
It's the wrong vibe, I would say. It's too sort of scary and dystopic. I've seen enough like post-Kubrickian sci-fi to know now that when this tone comes, we're all going to die. People's problem is not that we're too disconnected from reality. It's that we are not connected to reality enough. This is the opposite of what's required. Everything is so relentlessly geared towards the acquisition of profit and power that if you put something this brilliant into it, it's overly turbocharging and mobilizing an already potent force. And I've only looked at 5 seconds, and my energy is about, oh my God, I want to do it. I want to go in there.
As more and more people wake up and begin to ask themselves, what's going on? And they also find themselves asking, what is this great reset everyone's going on about? So for all you newly woken people, here's a short film to explain the New World Order.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am
Klaus Schwab. Let me tell you. You will have nothing and you will be happy. You will have nothing and you will be happy. You will have nothing and you will be happy. You will have nothing and you will be happy. You will have nothing and you will be happy. You will be happy.
And if that didn't help, here's the former Malaysian Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, to explain. Now it's time to talk about chairs.
Yes, chairs. Let's talk about chairs. Full pun intended, chairs are the biggest fucking issue in the fat community. The amount of public spaces like doctors' offices, malls, what the fuck ever, places that have seating, restaurants, etc., never ever have accessible seating. Some places just have stools, or some places just have armed, small, dinky looking chairs. As a fat person, if you have never ever done the following things. If you have never looked at a picture of a restaurant on Google Maps to try and figure out if the seating would be accessible to your size, if you've never broken a chair in a public space especially, if you've never had to second guess whether or not it was okay to sit down in the chairs provided to you, if you've never had a fucking panic attack at school because you couldn't fit into the goddamn chair desk situation, then you don't deal with fat phobia at the same level that the rest of us do. And this is just one example. There are a plethora of other examples I could give you. But this one is really, really important.
Welcome back. And for all our UK viewers, arriving just in time for Christmas, it looks like Plan B is on the way.
Don't panic! Don't panic!
And now it's time for the weather, where you are.
Yeah, man, hey. Hello, it's time for your news for use weather report. There's some dark clouds on the horizon, but don't worry, my friends. It will pass, you see. If you want to see the sunshine, you have to weather the storm, man. Remember, keep your head up, stay strong. Every little thing, you're gonna be all right. Yeah, man. Hey, that's all for now. Back to my man, Wayne, in the studio. Yeah, man.
As Mop Top, Clip Clop, Axe Wielding, Rock God, Alpha Male, Gene Simmons morphed into a bedwetting soy boy.
You know, I may not be able to force you to get a vaccine. And by the way, I think it should be a law.
To the pandemic now, the KISS tour is on hold due to COVID-19. Another bandmate has tested positive, Gene Simmons. Earlier this month, I talked to him as the band readied for that tour. The coronavirus was a concern.
Usually, by the way, I would be farther away from you.
Gotcha.
Even though we've been vaccinated, even though we have masks on, just that extra layer of we respect you. And to all the deniers out there, the earth is not flat.
And in music news, And finally, it is with a heavy heart that I pass on the news that regular contributor, friend and ally, Andy McMillan passed away last month. Andy was a regular contributor to the News for Yous with his Wake Up with Andy slot. He was an inspiring and courageous voice for freedom, a great orator and a positive light in dark times. We at the News for Yous will be forever grateful for having met him and having the opportunity to have worked with such a humorous and fearless man. And now, for the last time, it's time to
Wake Up with Andy.
Andy, take one.
Andy McMillan here for the News for You in Glasgow, just after the freedom protests here at George Square. You can look about, there's still a lot of people about here. Big crowd today making their way to the BBC to protest against the blatant propaganda that spews out on a daily basis. So, see you there later at the BBC. Big march today, Glasgow's waking up by the looks of things. BBC are absolute experts at ignoring what they don't want to report upon, and nothing more so than the anti-lockdown movement and the protests either in Britain or across the world. Here we are outside the Ministry of Truth, also known as the BBC, where 2 and 2 is 5. Black is white, night is day, and everything and anything goes. If you look at the BBC News, if you can sit through it, you really deserve a medal, because it's pretty much unwatchable. This is where the media monkeys live that see no evil, hear no evil, and will speak no evil regarding lockdowns and the freedom getting taken away from the people. If you do manage, you think, I'm going to have a night and I'll be watching the BBC for some news. If you can pass that endurance test and you get to the end of the 25 minutes in Scotland, we then get the Scottish, so you think, well, I'll watch 5 minutes of the Scottish news and then flip it over to Newsnight, you know, really go for it. And it's a funny thing, because Nicola Sturgeon's just bringing in vaccine passports onto the Scottish people. That's the same Nicola Sturgeon who's going on and on and on about the need for there to be another vote over Scottish independence. The Scottish news, that comes on and it's immediately saying, the First Minister is saying tonight, and you think, where is this, you know? The very same Nicola Sturgeon who said there should be a people's vote over the UK leaving the European Union. But you turn that over and you used to get hit with that mock or a cock or a week or whatever it was. You used to get hit with that niche humour. That's absolute garbage, you know, real gutter stuff. But that's kind of your BBC's comedy. You know, it's not exactly laugh a minute, that's for sure. And I don't know where they get the stiffs. I don't know where they get these people on these shows. There's some kind of factory they rattle out these smug characters. The Nicola Sturgeon who always refers it's in the hands of the people. Except when you're taking the rights off the people. Except when you're locking the people up. People don't get a vote then. People don't get a say. They're told what to do, they're told to shut up, and if you don't inform, you're going to get it. But as you can see, the people aren't having it anymore. We're growing stronger, and at the end of the day, who cares of this crappy place? The BBC wants to acknowledge what we do. We do not need their validation to prove we are right. We will continue to fight, growing by numbers, day by day, week by week. We are going to growing stronger and we are going to win. And the biggest thing you can do is don't bother watching it. Switch off your TV set, go out and do something less boring instead. Thank you.
Neil
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're awesome, man. That's good.
Some man. That was amazing. I feel like the camera on the stage there today instead of that lunatic. Exactly, yeah, you're the kind of people that should be speaking.
But I'll get out a better road.
Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
The show is over. Thank you.
For my friend Andy from Killil Gibran. Fare you well. This day has ended. It is closing upon us even as the water lily upon its own tomorrow. What was given us here we shall keep, and if it suffices not, then again we must come together and together stretch our hands unto the giver. Forget not that I shall come back to you. A little while, and my longing shall gather dust and foam for another body. A little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me. Farewell to you and to the youth I have spent with you. It was but yesterday we met in a dream. You have sung to me in my aloneness. And I, of your longings, have built a tower in the sky. But now our sleep has fled and our dream is over, and it is no longer dawn. The noontide is upon us, and our half-waking has turned to a fuller day, and we must part. If, in the twilight of memory, we shall meet once more, we shall speak again together, and you shall sing to me a deeper song. And if our hands should meet in another dream, we shall build another tower in the sky. So saying, he made a signal to the seamen, and straightway they weighed anchor, and cast the ship loose from its moorings, and they moved eastward. And a cry came from the people, as from a single heart, and it rose into the dusk and was carried out over the sea like a great trumpeting. Only his wife was silent, gazing after the ship until it had vanished into the mist. And when all the people were dispersed, she stood alone upon the sea wall, remembering in her heart his saying. A little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, another woman shall bear me. Farewell, Andy, our friend.
Fuck off.